The Tears of Gaia by Redback Spino. Chapter 19. The Fight.
My, what a day!
It was well past midnight by the time Rarity had finally staggered back to her hotel room, still bloated from the feasting contest, and exhausted from the impromptu fidgeting party that was thrown for her. Several hours of dancing, shaking clawed hands with Griffin well-wishers, the unicorn was more than ready for a good night's sleep. Levitating her keys on the dresser by the door, she wobbled into the living room and plopped herself down on the couch with a satisfied sigh.
Ah, that's so much better, she said to herself. I admit, it feels rather rude to leave my own party before it is over, but quite frankly, right now I just need a rest. Dear old Pinkie Pie has more than enough party to make up for my absence.
Her joints cracking slightly as she stretched. She laid back on the couch with another sigh of satisfaction, closing her eyes as a blissful failed sleep finally overtook her. Sadly, it was not to last, however, for her blissful dreams of mountains of greasy, stodgy food being incinerated before her eyes were interrupted by the knocking of the door.
Well, I guess the party must have finally ended,
she muttered as she got to her hose and headed to the door. But as she pulled the door open, she was greeted not by a friendly but tired smiles of her fellow ponies, but Gellert.
Oh, Gellert, this is unexpected,
Rarity stammered. The Griffin stood in his doorway, a mere shadow of the boisterous, proud commander he had been earlier that day. For now, with his head low and his considerable gut, he almost looked defeated. Hi, he said in a strangely subdued voice.
Hello,
Verity replied. An awkward silence hung in the air as he stood on either side of the doorway.
Is there something I can help you with?
She asked. Huh? Oh, no, not really, Gellert replied, scrubbing the floor with a claw. More silence followed, neither Griffin nor Pony knowing what to say.
Well, this is getting awkward rather quickly. Well, then, pray tell, what is it?
I just... I'm never really good with this, he murmured. I guess I can't say... Good...
Come again?
You heard me, Gellert said, bowing his head. I just wanted to... say... His voice trailed off again, into incoherent mumblings.
Forgive me,
Rarity said.
But I didn't quite catch that. Can you speak up?
Good game! Rarity recoiled as the Griffin raised his voice, but checked her step as he saw his hand held out before him. You performed well today, and I just wanted to congratulate you. The unicorn looked him up and down.
Surely you can't be serious. This is the same Griffin who boasted that as soon as he was done with the feast, he'd go home for supper as well. And now look at him. I must admit, this is unexpected, she said, instantly placing a forehoof in his hand and shaking. What's unexpected is a pony like yourself, beating me in 2 challenges already. You've put up a better challenge than most, Gellert replied. How does a small mare like you do it? Rarity leaned against the door frame. Well, Gellert, that's quite simple. Somewhere out there, my friends are lost and in great danger. Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash, Applejack. I moved mountains for them, and to prevent seeing them safe and sound once more.
She chuckled for a moment.
I even participated in a contest I defeat.
Gellert let her swell. Well, for some pony as refined as you are, apparently. I must admit, you held up well. Rarity smiled.
I thank you.
He smiled back. As their laughter trailed off into the quiet once more, Gellert laughed nervously. That said, however, you have put up an impressive fight throughout this challenge. Let's just see if you can keep it up for tomorrow. There was a competitive attitude that she knew too well.
What?
Rarity said out loud. Well, I'd best leave you to your rest. I'll see you at the final challenge tomorrow, then. Gellert bowed stiffly again, turning on his heel to leave. But as he departed, he looked over his shoulder and said, Good luck tomorrow, Rarity. Rarity smiled and waved.
And do you get it?
The next day, the noon sun shone down on the town. Up above Vizier on the mountainside, crowds of griffins had gathered on rocky crags and ledges, where they could find a foothold. Twilight, Pinkie, and Starswirl sat together on a broad ledge at the base of the mountainside, surrounded by griffins of all sides, and before them stood Gellert and Rarity. The harsh murmuring coursed through the crowds. All of Vizier had turned out for this third challenge, but the air of frivolity and festivity was gone, for this was it. The challenge that would decide the fate of the town's soldiers. Rarity or Gellert? Here, the commander would be decided. Ladies and gentlemen! The old Griffin's referee's voice boomed over the heads of the crowd. Welcome, one and all, to the final contest of the 3-house challenge! Fled his wings, sending out clouds of dust and grit as he took to the air.
This is the deciding phase of the challenge. Whosoever wins this contest shall be granted command over Tears' army.
Twilight stood by Rarity, placing an encouraging hoof on her shoulder.
Nervous?
Rarity gulped, giving a feeble grin.
Just a little. There's quite a bit at stake here, you know.
I know, Twilight replied, but just stick to the same plan as the Flint. Use Geller's weight against him. You're smaller, but you're also faster and more nimble on your hoofs. Force him to wear himself out. It's not about knocking the other out. It's about being the last one standing.
Got it!
Now then, here are the rules of the challenge, the referee continued. Each contestant must start at the base of this ledge and climb up to the arena at the peak of the mountain. There, the two contestants must fight until one can fight no longer, by knockout, exhaustion, incapacitation, or otherwise.
As he spoke, another official griffin came forward, slipping flint black gloves onto Garrett's claws and strapping down his wings with a large leather belt. At the same time, another griffin approached Rarity, wrapping a thick scarf around her horn.
There is to be no use of teeth, beaks, horns, claws, or any sharp or pointed appendages. Weapons are forbidden, as is the use of magic or wings. Any breach of these rules will result in immediate forfeit. Are there any objections to these rules?
Rarity shook her head as she adjusted her headscarf. Geller shook his head too, both contestants looking at her dead in the eye.
Then, on my signal, begin climbing!
The judge flew into the air, all eyes upon him. He looked down both at Rarity and Gellert, ascending up to the peak, and gliding around the large flat circle that was carved on top.
Let the fight begin!
At his signal, both Rarity and Gellert put foreleg to mountain and began the long climb. It was not a steep ascent, gentle enough that any creature could climb it without the need of ropes or grappling hooks. But all across the mountainside there were large crags that loomed up in the way, or patches of loose stone that would crumble and slide under foot, paw, or hoof. Rarity gritted her teeth and muscled on up the mountain, taking slow, deliberate steps, ensuring her footing was secure and steady before pushing up. Her left forehoof slid slightly as she touched down on a loose slab, which slid down the mountain below her. She watched with bated breath as it slipped and crumbled far below her, before turning her face back to the peak. On her left, Gellert was already well ahead, taking the considerably faster climbing than just hope your footing is sure method, paying little heed to whenever his paws and claws hit loose rocks or particularly stubborn crag.
You might consider slowing down, Garrett, Rarity called. Maybe reserve some of your energy for when you actually reach the top.
Garrett laughed. Ha! You would like that, wouldn't you? Save your breath for the climb.
Without another word, he put on another burst of speed, his limbs as a blur as he scuttled up the mountain, sending showers of shield and pebbles in his wake. Rarity raised a hoof to shield herself from the falling rocks, clinging for dear life to the mountainside. As the small rock size subsided, she spat out the grit and sand, hastily brushing off her limbs and face.
When this is over, I will be needing a serious bath!
The rest of the climb continued in relative silence, save for the occasional pant or grunt from either of the climbers. Within minutes, Garrett finally heaved himself up into the arena. It was a simple flat patch of ground, some 5 or 6 meters in diameter, carved out on a mountain top. He sat himself down on an outcrop to catch his breath, overhanging the side of the mountain, with a heater far down below.
I don't suppose you could hurry up?
He called down to Rarity, a few meters down the mountain. Rarity grunted as he lifted herself on a small lid.
Such a consideration, Garrett. I'm not exactly a mountain pony. If you're so eager to begin the fight, then how about having me out or something?
But that wouldn't be a fair fight, would it?
Geller counted, a grin forming his face.
But hey, because I like you, I'll let you have a rest once you reach up here, before we start the fight.
Huh. How very generous of you,
she replied, nearing the arena. She could feel her limbs beginning to ache already, but clenching her teeth through the pain. She carried on until at last she put a forehoof on the floor in the arena. Geller grabbed her foreleg, hoisting her up onto the platform, where she plopped down on her rump, panting, and rolling her tongue out in a most undignified manner.
Thank you,
she wheezed. The griffin stepped back to the other side of the arena and sat down.
Take your time, whenever you're ready. Never let it be said that I dulled the fun with an unfair advantage.
Keep telling yourself that, blowhard,
Rarity thought, as she laid on her back a moment, chest rising and falling. After a minute or two, Rarity got to her hooves, her legs finally steady, and stamped against the rocky ground.
Ready to go?
Gellert called. Rarity nodded.
Then let us begin.
You know, I confess myself rather reluctant. I never like to hit a lady,
he said as he approached the center of the area.
Why? Just because I'm a lady, you think I can't handle a little roughhousing?
Rarity replied with a wide grin.
Take your best shot!
Gellert smiled a cruel smile.
All right, you brought this on yourself.
Rarity was ready for him, however. She saw his gloved hands swinging toward her in a rapid arc, and dropped down. Falling flat, she set down with a hind leg, knocking Geller's other 3 limbs out under him, sending him flying a few feet before landing hard on his front. Rarity leapt upright and scurried to the edge of the circle. Geller climbs upright, dusting off his bare shoulders, and went straight at the unicorn like a charging bull. Rarity dropped low again, this time on her back as she raised both back legs out in front of her. The griffin cannoned straight into her hooves, knocking the air out of his lungs, and he went tail over onto the hard ground again. He rose again, a little slower this time, and circling round Rarity, looking for any opening. But Rarity stood her ground, head lower and hooves spread apart. With a snarl like a lion, Geller came at her again. But this time, it was his turn to drop down low as he skidded into Rarity's front legs with his gloved claws, knocking her into the air like a bowling pin. She dropped to the ground with a heavy thud, knocking the wind out of her. Geller stood and faced her as he got up again, her limbs shaking slightly this time.
Had enough?
He asked with a sneer.
Not even close!
Rarity panted, confidently striding toward him. He came at her as well, fist ready to strike. Unicorn ducked again, Geller's fist nearly skimming the top of her ear as it whizzed over her head. His enormous barrel chest was right in front of her, and Rarity lunged out with her forelegs, bucking into him, once, twice, thrice! But as he reeled for the blows, Geller's flaying limb caught her on the cheek. She staggered backward as hot stars exploded in her vision, until both combatants were on either side of the arena. She wiped a small droplet of blood from her snout as he rubbed her bruised and swollen cheek.
You fiend! You bruised my beautiful face!
Rarity cried out in mock anguish.
Geller chuckled as he rubbed his battered chest. I warned you. You brought this upon yourself. You said you could take it, so I didn't hold back. You pack one heck of a kick, you know.
I may not look it, but I've had some experience in fighting before,
Rarity replied.
You don't say, Geller said. Well, here's a bit more experience for you. Remember, this is the day you almost beat Geller, Commander of Azir.
Looks like this is it,
Rarity thought to herself, as he watched his crouching low tail slipping back and forth.
It all comes down to this.
With a feral roar, Geller leapt at her, fists clenched and raised high above his head. Time to seem slowed down as Rarity acted. Dazed as she was, she knew how to act quickly. Leaping out of his path, she arched her back so she came up on her hind legs. Her front hooves contracted over his shoulders as he barreled past her. She kicked high, leaping over him like a ballerina as he skidded to a halt. Before he had a chance to turn or react, Rarity landed on the other side of him, her hind legs kicking up and slamming into his side, slamming him into the far end of the arena in a heap. Rarity rooted at the spot, unsure of what just happened. There had been no conscious thought in that move. She had acted purely on instinct and reflex. Yet she had pulled off an attack that would make an even experienced soldier's jaw drop. Geller groaned, trying to feebly lift himself off the ground. But each time, his limbs gave way, and he crumbled and fell.
So, are you gonna finish it? Geller muttered. Strike the knockout blow!
In reply, Rarity simply sat down beside him, before keeling over backwards from sheer exhaustion, lying on her back looking up at the sky.
Even if I had the strength, I'd rather not. Besides, I say you're pretty much incapacitated at this point. Am I correct?
Aye. She has 4 points, sir.
The referee called as he flew in circles about the fight.
So, Gellert, you fell first. Do you submit?
Rarity looked from the referee to the griffin laid in a heap before her. All eyes were on the commander, including several of the griffins and Pinkie Pie, who climbed up after her to watch the fight up close.
I submit,
Gellert managed to grumble.
For a minuscule moment that felt like an eternity,
the world seemed to stand still. Then the mountainside exploded. Cheers, shrieks of joy and victory for Griffin, Pony, and of course Library are like, Woot! Go Rarity! Yeah! Light came from all across the mountain as a detachment of soldiers airlifted the 2 semi-conscious combatants down the arena to the starting ledge where the rest of them waited. I think a slow cap is required for this. If you people in the audience would care to join me in clapping, because Rarity was awesome in this.
Rarity! That was amazing!
Pinkie Pie wasted no time in zooming forward and grabbing Rarity in a tight, big hug.
Pinkie Pie, I appreciate the sentiments, but I'm still rather into it.
The pony would quickly go,
Oh, sorry. But still, that was awesome. The way he slipped his legs out, whoosh, and those kicks in his face, that was just, it was epic.
Bravo, Rarity.
Star Swirl shouted, tossing his head into the air.
'Twas a duel well fought, and a victory well won.
Thank you, my friends.
Rarity replied, waving a hope to quiet their tears.
Thank you, everyone, but even if I emerge victorious, I would like to extend a round of applause to my opponent, who fought valiantly and like a true champion. Together, a warrior through and through.
The Griffins cheered and screeched as they applauded for their former commander. A few Griffins helped him upright, and he gave a bruised, battered smile to Rarity. Thanks for that, Rarity. The two of them sat down together. The Griffin shedding his gloves and straps around his wings, Rarity her horn wrappings. The ponies sat beside him, carrying bowls of warm water to bathe their injuries. The referee parted the crowd as he fought to reach the small group, carrying his claws Gellert's red and gold dress jacket. Rarity stood up before him. You have fought well, but Miss Rarity is the clear victor, so it is my honor to present to you with this, the official dress jacket of the commander of Vahir. Rarity levitated the jacket out of his grip, holding it before her for a moment, before slipping it around her shoulders. Being made for Gellert, the jacket was comparatively large and fit for her, falling loosely on her, long enough to be a dress. Give Rarity about, 5 minutes, and I can guarantee you that thing is going to look nice. Gellert got up, stickily standing before her, among the crowd of other Griffins that now stood to the attention of their new leader. I consider myself relieved. Commander, Rarity, he said hoarsely. We await your commanders. Rarity looked at the hundreds of heads, all looking at her expectantly.
Commander? Oh my, this is certainly something else.
She gulped. She looked down at her new clothes, projected with a golden trim and silver pips along the collar.
Well then, in that case, as my first order commander of this year.
One swift motion, she whipped the jacket off, slipping it around Gellert's shoulders. She chuckled slightly at his baffled expression, which accurately mirrored the expression of every Griffin pony around here.
I hereby reinstate Gellert the Griffin as commander of the Vizier.
Uncertain murmurs coursed through the crowd. What does she mean? She won command. She gave her right back. What's she playing at? This makes no sense. But why? Gellert stammered. You beat me fair and square. My army is yours now, as the rules state. Rarity stood before him.
Oh, but Gellert, this was never about your army.
It wasn't? Asked Gellert. Some of the ponies and Howard Griffiths almost simultaneously.
Not at all,
Rarity replied.
I was just after the other prize of this challenge. Your respect. When we came here, you looked down on us ponies as weaklings, inferior to you Griffins. Did you not?
Gellert shrugged. Yes, I did.
Exactly,
Rarity continued.
It was obvious to me that, if we were to make any headway with convincing you to help us in our search for our friends, we would first need you to see us as more than just weak. And, forgive me for blowing my own prophetic trumpet here, but have we not earned it by now?
Gellert looked up at the unicorn that stood before him. He thought back to when he first saw her and friends entered the town. She looked nothing like a prissy, snobby, uptight unicorn. I can relate, Gellert. I can relate. I guess looks can be deceiving, he thought. Aye, Rarity, you and your friends have my respect. To go through all of this for the sake of those closest to you, without thought of your own gain, is quite frankly admirable. Gellert stood proudly up, standing by Rarity's side, looking over the Griffins. And so, I am ordering that a search shall begin for these ponies' as missing friends. I'll need 4 Griffins to volunteer to go out and search. And so, preparations began for the great search. Within the hour, Gellert had his 80 volunteer flyers from among his forces. They began suiting up for the long flight out into the surrounding country. Rarity drew up quick sketches of Fluttershy, Applejack, and Rainbow Dash. Detailed descriptions of each one of them, which Twilight Starswirl then duplicated with their magic, until every volunteer had at least 10 copies. Pinkie Pie joined the royal chefs in preparing traveling food for each flyer, adding a little bit of her own sweet touch to the bags of granola, though she did back off somewhat when she saw Pinkie straps of dead meat with it. By the time the sun began to dip below the horizon, the 40 volunteer ponies stood proudly along the base of battlements of Vizier, the evening sun gleaming slightly off their freshly polished armor. Gellert, wearing his dress jacket, stood at the top of the gatehouse, overlooking the volunteer force, with Rarity by his side. Griffins! You have your orders! You are to fly out into an arc, covering as much land as possible, until you find any of these 3 ponies. If you encounter anyone along the way, be sure to ask them if they saw anything. It is of vital importance that we find these 3 ponies, for until we do, we cannot guarantee our own safety. The blight have grown stronger every day out there. If they discover these ponies before we do, and just one of these ponies let slip the location of the so-called Tears of Gaia, they can spell doom for the Vizier as we know it. So fly! Fly for all haste! Seek out and find these ponies, and to return them safely here. Now go, and may the winds be forever in your favor. With a roar of all voices calling out together, the The volunteer force took to the sky, sweeping up great clouds of dust with their flapping. Up into the air they went, spreading out over the sky from the mountain town. The griffins and ponies that remained behind cheered them and saw them off, until the nearest griffin was by his beck in the sky.
Well, I am getting kind of hungry. Time for a snack, methinks.
The griffin slid the bag on her back around, so that it hung just below her chin like a massive bag. Gerda was her name, as he had been flying southeast for hours now. The moon hung high in the sky above her, illuminating the land below. She had flown alongside the forest of Leota, over Knight's Peak, and was now halfway across Frowd Valley. But aside from the occasional chupacabra, kelpie, and an elephant or two, Goucher had seen neither hide nor hair of any creature out and about this late at night. As he chewed thoughtfully on a chunk of cured ham, she glimpsed light in the distance.
Ah, civilized season at long last,
She said aloud to herself, paddling at a burst of speed. As she neared the light, she saw the outlines of enormous silvery trees, which seemed to glow. She came to a halt in midair as she saw the source of the light. Before her was the vast forest nation of Zervadas, home of the deer folk. But the light was not the silvery white glow of their famous trees, but of something far worse.
Fire?
Dotted all through the forest, you could see flames of red and black, licking the leaves and trunks of the massive trees. Above the crackling, roaring fire, she could hear the faint sounds of creatures roaring, horns blaring, and the whiz and crack of magical energy shooting back and forth. And as she gently hovered lower until she was only a few meters above the canopy, she saw through a hole in the leaves the valley in the forest below, and among the carnage, 4 familiar creatures. Eyes wide with shock, Greta swung around and took to the air once more, flying straight back towards Fahir with breakneck speed.
I've got to tell the others, and the king! King needs to know. Unbelievable. After all these years, at last I found him! I found the king's son!